Hi, I've been waiting for you. You've just clicked on the Just Do the Damn Thing podcast. My name is Angie, and welcome to a brand new episode. Before we jump in, though, I believe it's important to set a clear intention for anything that we do in life. I want to explain to you the intention behind this podcast. Whilst I'm not a licensed therapist or a counselor, what I do have is my own lived life experience. I have been through many ups and downs in life, and I've had to overcome quite a bit during that time. I've also learned to get stronger and more confident in my life and the decisions that I've made. I have been asked by friends, family, and strangers who have been impacted by my story to share it with other people. And that's how I started this podcast. And now on to the episode. Hi, everyone. Today, I wanted to take a moment to delve a little bit deeper into what the Just Do the Damn Thing podcast is about and why I started it. Because I know what Just Do the Damn Thing means for me, but it might not be clear to everybody what that is. And you might have a different interpretation of what Just Do the Damn Thing means to you. I just wanted to name the fact that I could certainly sit here and give you in a tutorial style everything that you could do to try to improve your life and to get started on a business venture or to achieve a big goal that you might have, right? I could do that pretty easily and boom, that would be the end of the episode. But this podcast is really born out of many conversations that I have had with people over the years. Really, Just Do the Damn Thing is about learning certain principles and applying them, yes, but also looking at yourself and your thought patterns and your beliefs and who you have around you and understanding that your beliefs and the beliefs of others and your circle directly relates to the choices that you're making in life, right? And also becoming educated on how successful people go about life and what makes them different. Why are they in the 3% of people that are successful in terms of being able to write their own ticket in life? And why are some of us who are in the 97% just kind of going through the motions with a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress? What makes us different? And what makes the ones that are succeeding and that for the most part are living the life that they want to live compared to us? And so that is the purpose of the first part of today's podcast. But I also wanted to delve into this idea that a lot of women struggle with. And I know that we have male listeners too. So I am by no means saying that men don't have this struggle that I'm about to talk about next. But I do think women experience this in a very different way, just by the way that society has presented our roles and how we are grown up and nurtured, and also the pressure that we put on ourselves. And that is this idea that we put ourselves last. As women, we are often caretakers, we are problem solvers, we are sacrificers of our time and energy and money. And we've been programmed to be nice because deep down, our greatest desire is to be liked. And there is nobody that wanted to be liked more, in my view, than myself. I mean, I would twist myself into pretzels trying to be the nice girl. That's all I ever wanted, is for people to say that I was nice, that, oh my goodness, she's so sweet. And I wanted to be liked. And I know that that seems like a natural thing for anyone to want to be. But there comes a point where having the intention of being liked is no longer going to serve you. And that's what I had to learn and find out the hard way. And so recently, after giving a motivational speech, I spoke to two women who stayed behind. And one lady that came to hear me speak, she was talking to me about the fact that she felt one of the things that was stopping her from going after her dreams was her obligation to her elderly parents who needed her help and they needed to be cared for. And she was also probably going to have to move closer to where they lived. And she was very torn up about this because culturally, she was explaining, it is her responsibility to take care of her parents. But at the same time, she felt like being in their presence kind of brought her down emotionally because there was a lot of arguing and bickering and expectations that she would spend hours and hours in their presence, even though she may have had other things that she needed to do. It was like she felt guilted into spending all of her free time when she wasn't working and with her romantic partner with them. And you could just see the anguish on her face as she was explaining this. She also went on to explain that she was in a romantic relationship, and rather than that being light and filling her up, and I'm paraphrasing what she was saying here, she felt that she had also become a caregiver to her romantic partner. So can you imagine? She has these two elderly parents that she's desperately trying to take care of and give her time to them. But then even in her own household with a romantic partner that's supposed to be her equal, she felt like she had become a caregiver there too. And she was often taking her partner to the hospital, taking him back from the hospital to all of his different appointments, and really feeling depleted. And so we talked about this for a while. And then I spoke to another person that stayed behind after my speech to speak with me. And she was sharing that similarly, she had been brought up in a culture where she was expected to look after her parents. And she was born in her country of origin, which was Taiwan, I believe. And she was sharing that there were lots of cultural and familial expectations, and they expected her to go to America for a while, but there was always this expectation that she would come back. And so she found it really hard to navigate this big desire she had to stay in the United States, where she felt there would be more opportunities for her to grow and to excel. And she was just feeling this pressure that she really ought to morally, I suppose, go back to where her family were and avoid the feelings of immense guilt that she was experiencing because her parents used to comment about how much they missed her and how they longed to see her and see the family back together. The thing is, believe me, I know only too well about the cultural and familial expectations and just expectations that are put on us to do the right thing. We want to be liked. We want to be approved of, especially by our parents, by people that love us. And at one point, I was working a full-time job in the week whilst working at my parents' restaurant on a Friday and Saturday night. And I missed out on so many weekends because I was trying to be the dutiful daughter, right? When all of my peers were out at the weekend having a good time, my evenings were spent serving customers, trying to please my parents and bending over backwards to help their business improve. I mean, I purchased plates and serveware for their restaurant. I corralled friends to go shopping with me to buy paintings that went on the wall. I also encouraged them to come to my parents' restaurant and have a painting party to revamp the place. And I just went all in on trying to help them. I even encouraged my teaching colleagues and my students' parents to drive to my parents' restaurant to increase business. But spoiler alert, years later, those same parents, my parents, who I had given so much of my time after work, during holidays, for so many years, were nowhere to be seen much later on when I fell upon hard times. And this included them being nowhere to be seen when I was thrown out on the street in another state, in a foreign country, like a dog. And it was a really hard lesson that I would have to learn years later. But that wasn't the only thing that I had to learn. After my parents' restaurant eventually closed down, I continued to blindly go along life, just plodding along, hoping with my fingers crossed that, life would be okay. I'd end up with the husband, the house, the car, the children, the retirement. Actually, no, that's not even accurate because I don't even think I thought about retirement. That was too far ahead for me to think at the time. And aside from the husband, the car, the house, and the children, though, I had nothing else really on my list of things that I wanted to achieve, with perhaps the exception of traveling. And so from the ages of 35 to 39, I was newly married and spent my time working a full-time job with a 60-mile round trip commute to work and back. 60 miles, okay, in total. 30 miles there, 30 miles back. You might be thinking, well, why did you move so far away? I didn't want to. But my husband at the time had initially agreed that we would move halfway between both of our workplaces so that we could have an equal commute. And he went back on his word. So the commute was all mine because he enjoyed his 5-minute commute to work, people. Yes, I said 5-minute commute to work. And he liked the fact that he could come home from work, watch Maury, take a nap, and go right back to work afterwards. That is after he had eaten the meal that I had prepared for dinner for his lunch. So I had a young child at the time, and I would often stay up late at night preparing her baby food from scratch. I mean, with all of the freshest vegetables and fruits that I used to blend up. And I used to put them into baby jars. And I would be up probably until about 2:00 in the morning, just making sure that the babysitter had all of the food that my daughter needed. And I was also preparing food for the next day, just trying to keep ahead. And it got to a point where I had to beg my husband to agree to start collecting my daughter one day a week from daycare so that I could work late because I was falling behind. And even that was a big deal to him because according to him, it was my choice to place my daughter in a daycare or a preschool near my workplace. And so it really wasn't his problem, according to him. Honestly, I believe that I was suffering from severe anxiety. I just couldn't keep my head above water. I wore the same dark-colored clothes over and over again. I came home, and as I was making dinner, I poured myself a glass or 2 or 3 of wine. I was overwhelmed with the financial situation I was in because I was having to fork out so much money for tolls, car payments, and I was paying half of the cost of daycare, which was almost like having a mortgage in and of itself. And my husband, who made at least double the amount I did, didn't believe that we should combine finances. He just really didn't believe that we should be living a life of compromise and teamwork. And so the commute, as well as being solely responsible for cooking, cleaning, laundry, teaching our daughter, as well as holding down a full-time job, was killing me. And honestly, it got to a point where there was so much on my plate that I had to enlist the help of having somebody come to our house and clean to take that off my plate. We had a 4-bedroom house at the time. And as I said, with the commute, with all of the different roles and responsibilities and an ever-changing teaching job with more responsibility and more pressure and stress than ever before, I just couldn't cope. I was dying. That's how it felt. And even when I decided to move my daughter closer to our home that we lived in the area that our marital home was, my ex-husband still couldn't find time to go and pick my daughter up in any consistent way. So I ended up having to get a nanny to go and pick my daughter up from preschool to bring her back to our home. And it was just the most craziest time, I think, in terms of the go, 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 put everybody else first, except for myself, that I have ever experienced. Our marriage was a business relationship. There were no emotions, there was no compassion, no empathy. And the thing is, I felt that I had made my bed, so I had to lay in it. You know, I was just exhausted, barely holding on, and I had nothing in life to look forward to, it felt like, aside from my daughter. I mean, we never went on dates. We didn't eat together as a family. I was a single parent within a marriage, and my husband refused to attend family gatherings except for a short time on Christmas Day where he would arrive at my parents' house, leave, and then go home to watch football. He wouldn't even attend my daughter's birthday parties, even when all the other dads were there, the mums were there. Nope, I had to show up on my own. And it got to a point where I was constantly having to field questions about where my husband was. And what was crazy was this was no different to when I was having to travel to England to attend a wedding twice, heavily pregnant, and he refused to come after making a ton of excuses. So it wasn't any different to what I had seen, before my daughter was born. And so what ended up happening was it got to a point where there was a lot of resentment, as I'm sure you can imagine, right? And we would get into these really terrible arguments that would leave me feeling very fearful, and that there was nothing about my marriage on the inside that I had hoped or dreamed for. Nothing. And so everything looked great on the outside. As I said, I had the house, I had the husband that was in a corporate job, climbing the ladder, doing really great. He had a wonderful car outside, a brand new Audi. We had a 4-bedroom house with a pool. We had a nanny. We had a cleaner. So everyone on the outside thought, great, her life's amazing. But that is not how I felt on the inside. And over the years, I felt my life become dimmer and dimmer. And even down to the music that I used to play in my house had stopped. I literally became a shell of myself. And the things that really mattered to me, like playing music, like traveling abroad, like having people over for dinner and entertaining and opening up my home to family and friends and having them come and stay with us. All of those dreams, those hopes, they just evaporated. And I was essentially a tenant living in the same house as my husband, keeping him happy. And the joke is that I often spent most of my time cooking gourmet breakfasts, lunches, dinners, desserts completely from scratch on demand for my husband. I tried my best to make my marriage work because I wanted to provide a stable home with a mother and a father for my daughter. And so I was in people-pleasing mode. If I could just keep going and keep filling my husband's buckets and making him happy and giving him what he wanted and sacrificing my needs, surely our marriage would work. But it was like a bucket with holes in it. The more I piled in the sand, the more I gave, the more it poured out slowly from underneath the bucket through those holes. And it just didn't work. So I wonder how many of you out there feel like I did, like you are everyone's everything. How many of you are feeling drained or hopeless and just aimlessly doing things for other people while really and truly you're neglecting yourself? There's so many of you I know that are being pulled in so many different directions, right? It's your boss, it's your colleagues, it's your family members, it's your sister, your brother, your best friend, it's your husband, whoever it is. Maybe it's even your kids. But there comes a point where you have to stop and really think, what is the price that I'm paying for being everybody's everything? What price am I paying spiritually and emotionally and mentally? And if you're like me, physically. And so I wanted to share when the light bulb went off for me that this was not serving me. I remember I was watching an episode on Super Soul Sunday hosted by Oprah, and she had a guest on her show called Caroline Myss. And she asked Caroline Myss, how do you know if you are on the right path? And the reply that Caroline Myss gave just created a shift physically inside my body. She said, you know that you are on the right path when you are not put in a position to betray yourself. You don't betray yourself anymore. You are not put in a position where you feel like you have to negotiate your sense of integrity, which is an act of betrayal, your heart, which is an act of betrayal. You don't feel like you have to compromise who you are. It feels right. You don't feel like this is costing me my power. This isn't costing me my psyche. This isn't costing me my soul. I don't feel confused on some deep level. I can be tired, but I'm not cyclically drained, where I feel like I'm losing life or losing myself. And some of you may be wondering, well, what about compromise? Well, she says a compromise is when you willingly, out of love, say, that's it. All right, a little this, a little that. But in a compromise, you don't go away feeling like I've betrayed myself, like I've put poison in my mouth. And I think it was specifically that last part that made me stop and take a pause, because that's exactly how I felt. I felt like I was literally putting poison in my mouth by remaining in a situation that I was giving everything to everyone. And I was left feeling completely depleted and betraying myself. And so I wanted to share that with you, because whilst you may not feel as extreme as you feeling like you're taking poison and putting it in your mouth, You may feel like you are betraying yourself in some way, but everyone around you is normalizing this, right? They expect you to continue to do what you've been doing because, hey, you've been doing it, so why would you stop? And I really had to learn that that is not a healthy existence. So the day of that episode is when I finally woke up. I realized that I wasn't compromising. I was betraying myself. And by 2014, I had no dreams, no goals. I was just existing, just going through the motions in life. Well, not too long after that, we went to counseling. And the counselor during our one and only session ended up telling us that we should get a divorce and handed us a pamphlet on how to effectively co-parent because she could see through her questioning and the looks on her face revealed that she was really aware that my ex-husband just didn't have the capacity to understand what a partnership looked like. And so it was devastating to kind of have it acknowledged that that marriage was a non-starter, but it did take a while and a lot of internal pain for me to realize that the marriage was dead in the water and that it had never been alive in the first place. And within 3 years of listening to Caroline Myss's words, and after a lot of heartache, conflict, embarrassment, and confusion, I was divorced. But the day of my divorce was the first day of my journey towards choosing myself and putting myself first. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are you putting yourself first? And if you're not putting yourself first, then why not? And again, I know that some of you are on a job. Some of you are in the car. Some of you are in a situation where you cannot pause this podcast episode and get a pen and sit down and write the answers to these questions. But when you are, I'm really going to encourage you to write down the answers to these questions, which I'm going to say again. Are you putting yourself first? Yes or no? If the answer is no, who are you putting first over yourself, over your needs? And I really want you to write that down and be really honest with yourself. If you're worried about someone finding that piece of paper, then use code words. Use abbreviations. Nobody has to know about this exercise but you. But I really, really want you to do it. And then you're going to ask why you are putting those people first. And I don't care if it's your mum, your 69-year-old grandma, your 80-year-old grandfather, or your child, your dog, your husband, your boss. It doesn't matter who they are. Why are you putting them first? And then I want to ask you, what is the cost that you're having to pay for putting them first? Because when you're putting them first, right, you are losing something. And some of you are going to probably be saying, but I like taking care of so-and-so. It fills me up and it makes me feel needed and wanted. And that's fine. But I am talking to those of you out there that know what I'm saying. As soon as you hear me speaking, there's something in you that resonates. Maybe you've never sat down to think deeply about this. Or maybe you have, but you've just brushed it off because, oh my goodness, I don't want to be selfish. I do want you to think really carefully about these questions, because this is going to help you to take control of your life. And as you'll discover in future episodes, you're going to learn how to define what it is that you want in your life in a really specific way and put yourself first. And so I hope that you have learned a little bit more about yourself and your motivations for why you do the things you do for other people. And I hope this resonates with you. This is not to scare you or to tell you to be selfish. It is really letting you know that when you make room for yourself, it's a bit like Iyanla Vanzant says. She says that when your cup is full, everyone gets the leftover, all of the overflow. That's for everybody else. But you cannot give somebody anything from an empty or half-empty cup because you'll have nothing left to give. So we have come to the end of our episode. I hope that you had even just a little nugget that you can take away. And I will look forward to having you back here, listening to more specific things that you can do that's going to help you to drive your life forward in the way that you want, in a way you can still be generous, but put yourself first. And so until next time, go and put yourself first. Thanks for listening to our episode. Do yourself a favor. Go to justdothedamnthing.com, click on the Get Inspired page, and there you'll find a number of resources that will give you the inspiration that you need to look at life in a completely different way, including PDFs that you can print out that will help you to be more specific about what you want. On that website, you'll also see all of our social media links, including all the different platforms that you can listen to this podcast. However you're listening today, I need you to do me a favor. Please click the like, subscribe, and comment down below. And of course, share with your friends and loved ones. Until next time, just do the damn thing.